What's going on, guys? My name's Jake. I'm a system administrator at an MSP, and today I'm going to discuss the cybersecurity tools and settings that I actually use every single day. I don't actually work in cybersecurity per se, but I feel like everyone who starts in IT wants to do cyber. It's like the cool thing, and I want to give a realistic view of what it's like to actually work as a sysadmin with a cybersecurity mentality every single day. A lot of the things we do and the decisions we make ultimately lead to having a more secure environment for our companies. And so I think this video is super important. I hope you'll find some value in it too. Before I get started, I wanted to answer one question that had been asked me in the comments, which is, can everything I do be done remotely? I work 100% remote. I work from this office, my home office, and if I need someone to go on site, I can work with, if there's an internal IT contact or just an internal contact, like a VP or something like that, that can take a look at something for me, I can use them, or else we send one of our tier 1 field services workers to go on site, and then I'll work with them. Okay, so those couple of things out of the way, let's discuss cybersecurity concepts that we actually use on the job. The first thing is MFA configuration and enforcement. We primarily use Duo MFA and Microsoft Authenticator. Setting people up for MFA is super common. Re-registering people for MFA, going through the process of them getting an MFA code and then validating it on their app for all things Microsoft, and ensuring that Microsoft MFA is enforced in our per user MFA screen. So this is something that's super important. All of our organizations have MFA and it has to be enforced. And if for anyone it needs to not be enforced, there has to be a very good reason why and a signed sheet that basically says you accept the responsibility for not having this MFA. To be honest with you, other than like some service accounts, I can't think of a good reason why a user account would not have MFA. Second, and this kind of goes along with MFA, please note all of these solutions are, I should say most of these solutions are in Microsoft, is conditional access. If you're not in IT yet and you want to go into IT, I highly advise that you look up conditional access and learn what it is. Conditional access is self-explanatory, but it's an abstract concept when you first start. People also call it CA a lot, and we also ask for CA exclusions. So a conditional access policy is a policy that says you can access your resources, your Microsoft resources, as long as you meet certain conditions. What are these conditions? One of them, very often, almost all the time, is you have to have MFA. If you don't have MFA, you can't log into Microsoft. Another one is you have to be on a certain network sometimes in order to access resources. You can't access Microsoft resources off network, okay? So you need to be in VPN in order to access Microsoft resources. This is important. Another one is you have to be on a certain kind of device. We have these require approved device policies. Require approved device Windows, require approved device mobile. We call it RAD Windows, RAD mobile. If your device isn't fully Entra joined, so if it's like an on-premise device, but it wasn't joined to Entra in this hybrid state, this hybrid registered state, that's not going to work. You're going to get some conditional access failures and you're not going to be able to access resources. This is something as a system administrator we're troubleshooting all of the time. We have a ton of organizations. We have internal IT joining devices all the time and shipping them off to random places. And we have to go through the loop of ensuring that this device is actually compliant in order for people to be able to access resources on it. And again, if there needs to be some exemption or exclusion, we have to go through our process. Another really common conditional access policy that we have is you can't re-register MFA off premises. So we have these locations that we call named locations in Microsoft that are the IP addresses or the IP ranges that we consider on premises or some other named location. Then it's okay, this is an IP address that it's okay to re-register MFA from. If you're not on this IP address and you try and re-register MFA, you're going to get conditional access and you're not going to be able to do it. So then we have to go to our security team and be like, hey, I'm working with this person, this user, this VP, whatever. I know that it's who I think it is. I've called at a known number and we need to re-register their MFA on this new phone that they got. Can I please get an exclusion for that? And so then we can take that user and say, hey, just for right now, this person can re-register off premises. Right, once it's done, we block that again. So if an attacker were to steal this person's credentials and try re-registering MFA to the attacker's phone, they wouldn't be able to do that. Thirdly, and something that kind of goes along with all of these things, is Microsoft, I should say Entra sign-in logs. So looking at user sign-in logs, where are sign-ins coming from? Sometimes there's an insane amount of sign-ins from a bunch of different countries. And in these sign-ins, you can see the reason that sign-ins are being blocked sometimes. So like I said, device compliance, MFA is required, maybe it's disabled or something like that. Some other thing that's going wrong. You can use this to track reasons why things are going wrong. Also, you can use it to track like what bad things are happening, right? And on the note of sign-ins, when someone's terminated or they get hacked or something like that, we can revoke sign-ins. So we can pull people's MFA sessions away, pull those tokens away and say, hey, if you're signed in, you're not anymore, bro, right? You're gonna have to re-sign in. We'll reset their password, block sign-ins altogether, remove current sign-ins, and that'll just log them out of their Microsoft stuff. So in terms of information protection, this is something that's super powerful. Again, when someone clicks a bad link and gets hacked, or when someone's terminated, we don't want them to be able to access company resources anymore. Something that's really common that we do as well at my company is just like password hygiene checks, ensuring that there aren't a gazillion accounts that have passwords that never expire. Although NIST, CISA, and Microsoft's official posture now is that passwords should not expire unless someone's been hacked. Because if someone steals a password, they usually don't steal the password and then save it for later to do the hack. If they steal someone's password, they usually use it right away. And a password expiry policy actually encourages people to make more simple passwords. So you want to convince your users to make a good passphrase, ideally, and it doesn't have to expire. That's not a good policy anymore. But this is something that we look at. It's still something that gets pinged on audits as well. So passwords that never expire, forcing password resets, passwords that are too simple. Obviously, we set up password complexity requirements in GPO or in Intune, depending on if our company uses on-prem Active Directory or whether they're only a cloud company. So those kind of password policies, always ensuring that everything is secure as it possibly can be, and then which accounts are service accounts, which accounts need to be excluded from certain things and things like that. So always looking at the password posture of a company as a whole, and then trying to take into account Microsoft, NIST, and CISA's policies, and I should say recommendations in terms of company security. Microsoft Defender, to be honest, we don't use Defender very often. We have Huntress and an entire security team that does things with that. Sometimes I will use Defender to see the IP that an email is coming from. Other than that, I really can't think of a time where I've really dug deep into Defender. So as a sysadmin, I think I have 8 months of sysadmin experience. This isn't something that I've actually used a lot. However, we have user risk and sign-in reports in Azure. That actually is something that we use. If someone has a sign-in that's not like crazy sketchy, but it's just a little bit off. They signed in from Dallas, Texas yesterday, and then today they're signing in from Portland, Oregon, I don't know, 45 minutes later. It's like those two sign-ins wouldn't make sense together. And so we can revoke sign-ins for certain users, and usually, in my position, it's a matter of, hey, I'm gathering all the details. This is what happened. This is what it looks like to me. Revoking all sign-ins, if it's like a low risk, and just sending it to the security team for them to look it over. Mail flow rules is something that we do very often. Looking at forwarding rules, Billy Bob makes a forwarding rule to another company email. I'm looking at that and saying, okay, this is an internal forward from an internal address to another internal address. There's probably not any like data loss prevention stuff that I need to take into consideration with that. If it's an external forward, I really want to make sure that, first of all, that Billy Bob actually made that forward. And then secondly, again, that we have documentation signed that's, okay, we're giving this dude access to send company emails to his personal email or to wherever it has to go externally. So that's something that we do quite often. And then mail flow rules in general, ensuring that certain attachments can't be sent in Microsoft Exchange. It's a matter of going to Exchange, making the rule, and it's quite simple. We have 10 standard ones that we use for every org, and attaching, for example, a disclaimer on an email that came externally to people. These are all things that we're looking at and that we're trying to have in place for companies so that in general, we're reducing risk in the email avenue. And then lastly, something that we do all the time is looking at a company's security score, their security identity secure score. We use something called Connect Secure. And so we use this to look at a company's posture. It does like vulnerability scanning, and it shows which vulnerabilities you have. And you can filter by something called EPSS score, which is basically like the likelihood that it's actually going to get exploited and something bad's going to happen. And so we look at these high vulnerabilities and we're fixing them. And this is a constant battle with keeping devices up to date. Some new vulnerability comes out. It's a constant battle for keeping things as secure as you can, trying to keep up with the times, and then some new vulnerability pops and you got to go and make sure that there's no vendor that needs old Python from 1985. Obviously it wouldn't be that old. Old Python 3, and that you can actually update it and it's not going to completely break functionality with the app. And so this is something that is hard. You're always trying to make sure that everything works, but is as secure as it possibly can be. And if more security generally makes it a little bit harder to work. And at the end of the day, the most secure device is a device that's turned off and unplugged, right? But it's not realistic for our clients. So it's evaluating, hey, is this worth trying to remediate for the burden that it's going to place on the workers of the company, and trying to keep those EPSS scores down as much as we possibly can, take care of those really high vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Now, this was a lot, but this wasn't everything. I want to have a couple of honorable mentions. The other day, I got to look at some Azure Sentinel alerts, and they have these Custos query language where when certain things happen, some certain condition, like a registry key change, for example, something that was disabling Defender, we'd have to change the query to exclude certain things. But again, trying to take the bigger picture into account of, is it safe enough for me to exclude this? And it's a lot of working with internal teams and ensuring that what you're doing is not going to absolutely bork an entire company's security posture. It's not going to bork functionality of any apps, and it's not going to make a gazillion alerts either. And it's a constant battle, to be honest with you. But it's a fun one too. It feels like good against bad in real life. I also do a lot of stuff with granting admin consent for certain apps, always thinking about the nature of the app, what it actually is, whether it's going to need one of those security exemption requests, one of those exclusions that's written. It's okay, we accept this. If it's file sharing, that's something that we're definitely looking at. Just generally setting up apps using things like OIDC to use Microsoft Azure authentication or some federated authentication from Active Directory, ADFS. All things that we're configuring, looking at, pondering, discussing with ChatGPT, and then setting up. Also, one thing that I totally forgot to mention is phishing emails. Fortunately, this isn't something that I do that much anymore, but when I was a tier 1, I did a lot, is evaluating phishing emails. Taking an email that looks fishy, taking all the links, looking at them in VirusTotal, opening the email in a sandbox, detonating everything I possibly can, using Cisco Talos, using Thunderbird to look at the sender IP and then take that IP and put it into Talos, and you can see it. This is a dangerous IP, or this is a potentially malicious IP, and these things will ping. They'll give you a nice little red marker, and you can take your screenshots and either say, I'm pretty confident this is a phishing email, or I'm pretty confident this is okay and you have nothing to worry about. We do a little bit with email authentication, SPF, DKIM, DMARC. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't done a ton of stuff like this. I've altered some DNS records, added text records, CNAME records where needed for certain validation and things like that. But in terms of troubleshooting email auth, it's not something that's super common. Microsoft handles the vast majority of our stuff. We do have some companies with on-prem exchange. There has been some weird stuff, but I've just never ended up with one of those tickets, to be honest with you. I know people do it though. Certificate expiry, SSL certificates is something that we do quite a lot, ensuring that they are up to date. If they're not, you won't have that secure lock at the top left of your browser. You break functionality of certain things. SSL, public key infrastructure, and keep things safe in that regard is actually super duper interesting. It's also super complex. Like, we just have this super long KB with how to generate a CSR, put it into the domain host wherever you need the actual cert to come from, get the cert, make sure it has a private key, bind it to certain listeners. There's this whole process that I'd be lying to you if I said I understood every single step of it along the way, but it's definitely something that we do that keep an organization secure. We use certs internally, and we have certs that, again, are binded to listeners that are used over the public internet. So that's something that we do. We do a bit of BitLocker, just ensuring that it's enabled. Another thing that the vast majority of our companies want. A lot of times we have LAPS. LAPS is a password rotation, automatic password rotation. The information is stored in Active Directory. That's really good for having local admins on devices. Then you don't have to make random local admins and forget that they're on there, because that happens and it's not good. You will get in trouble if you get audited and you have a random local admin sitting around on a device that has the password temp password 1 or something like that. Again, that's not something that we do. We want to have LAPS set up on our computers. And then lastly, we do some autopilot, some Intune compliance checks, ensuring that things are up to date. Specifically with Macs, I should say Windows as well, but I just had a ticket the other day that we were using Intune to track compliance of a Mac, and one of them wasn't checking in, and basically the dude, much like Conditional Access, got blocked out of all of his Microsoft stuff because his device wasn't checking in with Intune. So we re-registered him with the company portal, and things were good to go. But so just maintaining that device status in Intune. A lot of the times we do it in Entra as well, so those two things go hand in hand. Okay, that is everything that I can think of right now that we do cybersecurity-wise with our companies. You can see it's a lot. A lot of this stuff is like stuff that you'd be doing in a cybersecurity position. Identity and access management, conditional access, named locations, MFA, certain granting roles in Entra, something that's super common, the SSL certs, ensuring that people have an overall secure environment by using things like EPSS score or severity of vulnerabilities, using vulnerability scanning and remediating those vulnerabilities in general. So it's really fun. Honestly, it's a fun part of the job. Again, it's a constant battle between functionality, and security. And I'm pretty sure it's the never-ending battle. Hope you guys have found this video useful. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments. I will try my best to answer them in a video. Have a great day. Be safe, be smart, and make some great decisions. Goodbye.